Hello, everyone, and welcome to my webinar on how to tattoo in black and gray. My name is Ivano, natale, and I've been tattooing for almost 20 years. In the past 10 years, I've dedicated myself to the art of black and gray tattooing. My techniques come from the American West Coast, where I've spent most of my life up to now, and where I was able to find my inspiration and artistic identity. Tattooing in black and gray is not just a monochromatic choice of interpretation. I believe it's a lifestyle, and the West Coast has taught me a lot when it comes to that. In this webinar, which I decided to do for free, and obviously for those of you who will buy the masterclass, you'll be able to see a lot more things in details. But as of right now, like through this explanation, you will have the opportunity to understand what my choices are based on and how I can enrich and build the reference suitable for the subject that I'm going to be tattooing. I think an artist can define himself as such only when he has his own vision and knowledge of what he does. For those of you who are looking at the execution of a tattoo for the first time, you have to know that the years of study and experience will make something like a medium-sized tattoo possible or doable in one day. For those of you who have decided to choose this path as your career, it's not easy. It's a long journey, and the best way to do this is probably enjoy your personal experience and journey. You have to put a lot of work into it. I'm sure this webinar will make sure that some of the doubts that took me years of struggle to be learned will be easier to accomplish. I think one of the most important thing for me is to be able to not stand out as being better than the next guy, but I want my tattoos to look like my tattoos, and that's something all of us want. And but without techniques, without the study, without the vision, without endless nights spent on collecting references or even learning how to use lights and shadows in the proper way, it's not possible to take the next step. And obviously, you can't run before you start to walk. So you got to learn how to walk first to be able to run. Once you do that, I think put in, that extra effort, going that extra mile into it, will show over time. Because one thing is to take a reference that's right there for everybody to use, and another thing is to create your own. Thinking and making mistakes will make your art unique, so don't underestimate that. In the first part of the masterclass, if you buy the masterclass, but you will be able to see that in the free webinar as well, there's the presentation of my project. Usually what I do before I start tattooing, once I put the project together and I get a rough idea of how it's going to wrap around the body part that I'm going to be tattooing, I do everything like a rough sketch, with a marker, maybe a Sharpie if or whatever I have handy in that moment. Then once the project's ready, I just put it through a printer, a regular printer, US size paper, whatever helps me see the image, print it, and try to wrap it around the body part that I'm gonna be approaching later on, and see how it looks. If it's a face, for example, if it changes, I don't know, like the proportions or maybe even the expression. So I always try to make sure that whatever I thought would work in my head actually works in real life. So when you see me do that, it's because I want to make sure that all the adjustments can be made ahead of time. Obviously, there's going to be other things done to the tattoo later on, because everything changes, when you move from a step to another. But I think it's always worth it. So, um, obviously, in the first part, you see me deal with something that I've already prepared, but how did I get there? Obviously, every time I approach a tattoo, although it's been 20 years almost, guys, I love doing this. There's nothing else I would do. And I remember my first days as if they were yesterday. Um, the struggle and the effort that I had to put into it to get to a level of understanding and knowledge, it's been rough. So I hope this clarifies a lot of doubts in your head and fills a lot of gaps. When I work on a project, obviously I collect references, and just like everybody else, like I try to see what works and what doesn't. But it's not up to everybody to think outside the box. When I do that, I combine elements. Try to think of a painting that I really liked or a photo that I saw and I really liked. And I try to sometimes either work on that concept and use my own references and images to it, or I build the idea as it goes. And the best way to do that is make up a story in your head. So if you're doing, like in my case, mi Chola, I had to think of what tattoo she had to have and her hairstyle, the bandana, her expression too, her features, everything. Knowing that all the time that I would have spent on my iPad, on paper, or freehanding on skin or on my computer, whatever floats your boat. So whatever medium you like to use before actually starting a tattoo, make sure your creativity is always there. Don't be too technical about stuff. That comes after, when you have to apply on skin. But before that, start thinking of something new. Put your own image together. There's thousands of references of girls with bandanas. Why would I, take another bandana and another girl and draw hair freehand and then add I don't know, smoke or an earring or another tattoo to it? Like, why would I do that? The answer is simple. I love this. I just love it. And it creates something unique that people will remember. So the fun part is definitely not only the tattooing part, but also the creative part. We open our mind to endless possibilities. But when we do that, we have to understand that there's certain limits that apply to skin. We have to work for the longevity of things. So not only proportions, but also portions of black skin and gray have to be in place. In order to do that, we have to learn how to choose our references. And, when in some cases we can't really choose our reference, we have to learn how to adapt and turn a generic image into a high contrast image. High contrast in monochromatic stuff translates into skin, gray, and black. So, skin is not going to change. In black, it's going to fade out a little bit, but it's still going to be a lot darker than the gray choice and the gray scale that we're going to put in there. So we have to make sure that all the transitions from A to B are done on paper or screen first, and then we have to take in consideration the fact that it's going to sit on someone's body for the rest of his life. We want that to look good. Now, there's an easy way to do this, which is take a reference and just use it. And then there's the fun way to do it, not the hard way. Obviously, it's hard, to think of something new, but step by step, little by little, we can get there. And I definitely like the fun part a little bit more. When it comes to stenciling, obviously we all have different techniques, but I like to, think of a stencil as a map that helps us get from A to B and we all know what we need in that map. I got to a point where my stencils are a bit more generic than they used to be. So all the midtones, all the stuff in between, the the most important elements that I consider, uh, you know, something that have to be there in my stencil. So some of the stuff in between, I really don't stress over too much, and I don't even trace it sometimes. Reason why is because all the studies throughout the years, um, on anatomy and lights and shadows and contrast, help me build my own secure space where I know where I feel comfortable. So I'm not going to tell you exactly how to do a stencil, that's on you. But what I can tell you is that when you build an image, first of all, make sure that all the elements you added to it have the same light source. Um, Second of all, make sure that everything you trace, it's actually tattooable. And so all the gaps, all the spaces between one thing and another will hold throughout time. So hair and earrings and lashes and all the little stuff, make sure it's there and it's there to stay. When you trace your stencil, you don't have to simplify it or rush it. You have to do whatever helps you to get from A to B. Now, the reason why I do it on iPad and I don't do it through US paper as I used to do it is because, first of all, it's a storage problem. With my iPad, I have everything stored in there for years. And when my customer comes back and sometimes he doesn't make his appointment, he has to reschedule, or I have to reschedule, or something gets in between. So we hardly ever take in consideration the fact that we're not going to see that person right away. So we have to make sure that we have the best tools in case that happens. So if we procrastinate or if we reschedule an appointment or whatever the case is, having a digital storage compared to a physical one, where for years I've stacked up images and stencils that I couldn't find the day of. Well, that was a problem. That was a problem that I definitely had to solve. And thank God technology helped me. Okay, so once you've traced your stencil and printed it, and in my case, I need a stencil machine to run it through. Um, it comes the application part. Now, obviously, as I said, there's people that, like me, that do their stencil through iPad, and others that do it through regular US printing paper. Um, if you do use a iPad, obviously you're gonna have your stencil on a stencil paper, so it's way softer. It wraps around the surface in an easier way, and obviously it's never perfect because you have a piece of paper wrapping around a rubbery and circular surface. So try to be as neat as possible, but chances are that something is gonna get like not perfectly there, but make sure it's not an eye or a nose or a mouth, because that's a mess. um, you're gonna have a bit more difficulties when you wrap around a regular printing paper. But as I said, to each his own. Make sure that whatever you use to apply the stencil, so stencil stuff or Anchored, or there's a lot of good products out there. Whatever you use, make sure your skin is not fully covered in stencil product. Make sure it's sticky, but to a point where your stencil will actually hold. Um, After I'm done with that, I don't start tattooing right away. Reason why is because I believe a stencil should sit on skin for about 30 to 40 minutes. I know it's a long time. I know it's a long waiting time, but I'd rather have my stencil there and struggle to have it gone than having it gone when I need it there. So when I start working, just like everybody else, you're gonna have to wipe off some extra ink that gets stuck on skin, and obviously that fades your stencil lines a little bit. But one thing is to have them faded, and another thing is to have them gone. Imagine having an eye of a portrait that you're working on completely gone. There's no way you can uh, make that same eye happen again through freehand or just tattoo it, or even if you stencil it. It might be a problem. One thing is to go off the top of your head when you draw, and another thing is to do someone's portrait. That's gonna get in the way, and yeah, it'll be a mistake. So make sure your stencil sits for about 30 to 40 minutes before you actually start working, and while you do that, make sure your setup is correct. In the masterclass, you'll be able to see in details everything that I'm telling you right now. And when it comes to the setup, you'll know exactly the size of caps, ink caps that I've used, and what type of water, what type of black, what type of needles I've used for this tattoo, and what's in general what I consider my everyday setup for every tattoo. Every single choice will be based on size and details, and as I said before, longevity of the tattoo. But one thing that sometimes we never really think about is hygiene. Not because we're not clean, but because we don't talk about, like in the seminars especially, we don't talk about how stuff has to be for single use, like needles and ink and caps and water cups. Other than your machine and your battery or your power supply, now everything we use is for single use only. It's everything is disposable. So that part is a lot easier, because obviously this industry has been looking after people's health for the better for a very long time. So using disposable products is definitely the best way to not create contact between one person and another. Always make sure you take in consideration the cross contamination. So don't touch anything else that is not wrapped. So your phone or your computer, whatever it is, when you're touching skin, especially when you're touching it with the hand that you're using to apply ointments or whatever cream you like to use when you tattoo. Um, what else? Make sure everything is in the right place, and if you look into it deeply through the masterclass, you will know exactly how to do it step by step. Okay, so when we move on to the execution part, so we're actually ready to start tattooing now. We've done all our homework. We worked on the prep parts, and we've stenciled. We've waited before actually starting the tattoo. About 30, 40 minutes, I would say. 30 minutes minimum. Once we approach our tattoo, we all have our ways. Obviously, in this free webinar and more in details in the masterclass, you'll be able to see what my approach is. What I can tell you from right now is the fact that, having this been almost 20 years of my life, I've learned to tattoo from bottom to the top. Obviously, it's not always the case, especially because I base my choices on contrast. And, I like to start, in certain areas that sometimes are not necessarily at the very bottom of the tattoo. Or if it's a long session, I rather focus my attention on what I consider being the main focus of the piece. So sometimes, like if it's in the center, it might happen that I'll cover the top and bottom of the tattoo with some paper towel and start working on that part. First of all, it allows me to focus completely on what I think it's the most important part of the tattoo and needs fresh energy. Um, on the other hand, it allows me not to smudge everything over the skin and also not be influenced by how much stuff I still have to cover. The process and the journey is a lot more pleasant if you do it that way when it comes to long sessions. Um, it's usually the case every day for me to do long sessions, but I can tell you that anything that fits an A4 size U.S. paper, I can get it done in one day. Um, some of the stuff you'll see in the masterclass and that you're probably seeing now in the free webinar will show you how like my choices always go towards the light. So I start from my shadows and my darkest points and then try to move to my lightest points. There's a reason why I do that, and the detailed explanation will clear a lot of doubts. But there's a another element that I've added to this tattoo, and I really wanted to do it. You've heard me speak about how I build my own reference, and I hardly ever use anything pre-made. That's 99% of the cases, um, especially when it comes to subjects like this, where I have the freedom to combine more elements together and do basically whatever I want. Um, when it comes to the bandana on mi Chola, what I did was, uh, you know, take my own bandana, draw the hair, and every decoration in the bandana has been free-handed. There's a technique to it. So when I've used white and black and then gray in that particular moment, I think there's 20 minutes of it in the masterclass where I explain why some of the processes um, actually backwards to what you would normally do. Um, and how I like the decorations in general, like in any fabric. I like them do just freehand. Um, Depending on, how dark or light the decoration is, or if it's negative, I use a different technique. And I think that as a first webinar, I will show you, the freehand white uh, decoration technique from the get-go. So not save it for the next webinar or masterclass, but put everything that I really love to do um, in one space. So bear in mind that the execution of this tattoo took a little bit over 7 hours, and the recording of the masterclass and webinar in general, it took 2 days. Um, I've spent an entire day explaining the process and how to of every single step that I take when I start, a project, a new project, and that's the case for every project that I do. And when it came to the tattooing part, though, I had to take another day. I had to be fresh. I had to, do everything the way I'm used to do it. I didn't want to be tired, especially in front of the camera, especially when I had to deliver something to you guys. I had to show you something done and then the heel result. So you're gonna be able to see that in details, and it's something that I'm really proud of because it really took me months to put this project together. And reason why is because I'm always striving for perfection, and I know it might not be the case even with this, but I like things to be as clear as possible. At the moment, not only this free webinar and masterclass, obviously, but when I do one-on-one seminars, I really put myself into it so much, and I put myself in your shoes as well. I know what I would have liked to be told back in the days, and I didn't have the chance to even ask. And when I had that chance, like it wasn't always the answer that I expected. So if you have the chance to go to my page, my Instagram page, you will see some videos about me, doing seminars, and you will see the progress that the person has made in only 48 hours. Um, what I've tried to do is do all that in one masterclass, accessible to everybody around the world, and, you know, give it a possibility to avoid some mistakes. Um, I really hope you enjoy the process. And I really hope, you know, this makes you focus on your artwork and brings a lot of creativity out of you. When you will see the final result, you'll understand why, certain choices are made in certain tones are looking the way they're looking when they're fresh, and obviously they translate into softer tones when they heal. When I talk about black and gray being a lifestyle, it's something personal. But when I talk about it as a tattooing thing, your black and your gray. When your gray comes from water, it has a different result on skin compared to when it comes from gray color. Whatever your choice is, just make sure you know what you're applying to skin. I'm a black and gray guy in the sense that my gray comes from water. And when it goes through time, it has a different change to it compared to what color, turns into over the years. Whatever the case is, I really hope you're on the right path. And I really hope that your career is long and full of success. And if somehow this seminar, this webinar, and anything I will do in the future can guide you to a better result, that's all it is, really. And I really wish you enjoy the show. And until the next one, peace out.